Hi, I'm back with another novel, and this novel was very challenging for me, and it will probably be for you too, because there's a lot of hidden meanings and very old terminology. And this book is A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. Now, Charles Dickens, most of you have probably already know, he's a very renowned writer, and his books are also very old because he was born in the 1800s, so all of his terminology, all of his wordings are from the 1800s, which I'm pretty sure none of you are from, right? It's kind of creepy, like a vampire. Anyways, so he wrote many other great novels such as Oliver Twist and Great Expectations, and I'm going to read the Great Expectations soon, so wait for that review. And I'm actually kind of nervous. I don't think I'll understand that one. Anyways, I'll do my best. So, A Tale of Two Cities is a rather strange book. So the way he uses everything, the way he uses two cities, the way he uses the characters who look alike to each other, and the way he uses a girl to kind of create this drama, K-drama kind of thing. But it's actually a historical drama, historical novel, and I wouldn't say it's a historical fiction, but I would say it's a complete textbook because there's really little fiction in here. There's a lot more historical background, and it's really hard to kind of pick it out of the text because it's really subtly embedded in here. So it's really hard to pick out the symbolism he uses, the metaphors, and especially kind of configure the wording he uses. So this book is divided into 3 books. Book the first, book the second, and book the third. Why is it called book the blank, book the blank? I don't know. Go to his grave and ask Dickens. I don't know, honestly. It's probably just the old way they say it. But then, so anyways, the first book is from chapter 1 to 6. It's called Recall to Life. And all of the 3 books have a title, and they're very important. Recall to life is a very hard phrase. So when you say recall to life, what do you think of? Well, when someone says recall to life, I'll think of, I don't know, what did I do wrong in the past? I don't know, something like that. Or think about what I did in the past and something like that. So this is it's a phrase that's used commonly throughout the novel, and it's really hard to understand it until you get literally to the last page. So I will explain that later. And book the second is called The Golden Thread. So this title is a little less complicated, so I'll just tell it to you now. It's Lucy's hair. So, and Lucy Manette is a character who I'll explain later, and she's not a very dynamic character. She doesn't change throughout the novel. She doesn't cause a lot of action, but it's just her existence. It's just her existence that kind of just messes everything up. You know that one character in the book who's if you weren't there, nothing would have happened. He wouldn't have died. He wouldn't have gotten disease, something like that. It's all because of her, honestly, in my opinion. But she's described as this beautiful Barbie doll. So, and her hair is blonde, it's golden, so that's why it's called The Golden Thread. And book the second is mainly based on that typical K-drama scene with the love triangle. It was actually kind of fun. But there's a lot of drama between the two men who fight over her, who are Charles Darnay and Sydney Carton. And something bad, very bad, will happen to one of them later. And there's actually another man trying to fight for her love, Mr. Stryver, but he's not really important because he comes out a little bit and then disappears. He's a bad character, he's an antagonist, but he's so subtly mentioned that it's not really crucial to the novel because in the end the battle is between Darnay and Carton. And the third book, book the third, this part I actually didn't sleep while reading it. So it's called The Track of a Storm. So at first when you think of the track of a storm, I don't know, the gas, the dust, I don't know, the tumbleweed going across, all the blood, all the dead bodies laying around, maybe that's what I think of, and that's a part to it. And you probably don't know anything I'm saying right now. I kind of don't know what I'm saying right now because there are a lot of things to say. So this whole book is embedded, circled in, I don't know, intertwined with the French Revolution, which explains this cover. So this is just this version. It could, like other versions don't even have like the picture, but I like this one because it has a picture, and as soon as you pick up this book, you're just like, oh, war. And there's like smoke, and there's blue, red, and white, which could only represent one country, which is France! So this, yes, it's about the French Revolution, which took place from 1789 to 1799, a decade or so. But there are a lot of, I don't know, like remains, and what happened was Napoleon rise into power. Of course, you know, Napoleon, he was also kind of mentioned. He was symbolized in Animal Farm as, I don't know, one of the pigs. So, what happened was Napoleon rose to power, and then he became a dictator. So he rose because the people abolished the monarchy. However, he became a dictator himself. While he was saying, he's like, oh, the last thing I want is the people to feel like they are put under this monarchy or this aristocracy. Hypocrite. Anyways, so that's what happened, and then there's a lot of things that happened while Napoleon was there, and one of those things was the guillotine. And the guillotine is a very famous way of killing people, and it's a very cruel way too. It's very painful at first, and also it's very humiliating. So once you're set to the guillotine, your whole family is put at disgrace because there are all the people watching you, and there's this guillotine right there, go like, and your head's like gone. So that's how Napoleon killed people. He killed like, I think 18,000 maybe, probably more. But because of that, the Third Estate people finally kind of woke up and said, hey, he's not that normal type of man. He's a dictator. He's killing us. So they beheaded him. But so then what happened, this is really ironic, they restored the monarchy, which is called the Restoration. And honestly, like, why would you do that in the first place? Like, if you like, it's like thinking that like, once your parents nag you to do something, you're just like, I wish like they weren't even there. Like, I could do so much better without them. Trust me, I think that too. A lot. Sorry, Mom. It's true. But so it's kind of like that. You need a ruler. You need someone to keep the mold together, or everyone's just gonna spread apart. Everyone's gonna like kind of punch each other, blood, fruit punch everywhere, and that is because of human nature. And human nature is the whole big idea wrapping around this whole book. Because why would a war start in the first place? Because people are unhappy about something, and if it was a utopia, of course everyone would be happy. I love blood, I love killing, I love knives. But that's not the case. Human nature has greed, has anger, has love, has hatred, vengeance, all this kind of stuff mixed in one body, which is why human nature is so like complicated. And that's why I don't want to be a neurosurgeon, because it's just too complicated. There's too much stuff in our tiny brains that we can't solve. There's like a little bit of stuff. Anyways, so human nature, I will be talking about that a lot. I'll explain it also at the very end. And human nature. There we go. And so now I'm going to talk about the characters. Now I'll say there are a lot of characters. So the main characters, Charles Darnay, Sidney Carton, Lucy Manette, Dr. Manette, Jarvis Lord. Okay, so there's a lot of main characters, but the three you need to know right now, right here, is Charles Darnay, Sidney Carton, and Lucy Manette. And I'm going to explain it to you right now because they're just that important and that they just made me read that much. So, Charles Darnay and Sidney Carton are lookalikes. So they're basically doppelgangers, and that's basically most of what you need to know about just their relationship between Darnay and Carton, and that will become very important at book the third, because something will happen to one of them. And then so here comes the hot shot. Lucy Manette. So Lucy Manette is this Barbie doll who everyone just loves because she's just like All-Star model and she's just amazing. And first, Carton finds her and he's like, oh, I will devote anything to you. I will sacrifice anything even if that's my life. Hint, 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 hint. So Carton is kind of this like one-sided love. However, Lucy loves Darnay. And Carton becomes jealous of Darnay, of course it's K-drama, and then like there are a lot of fights in between them. However, at the end, Carton says, oh, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have been like that. If I really love Lucy, I should respect her love towards others. And he says, oh, let's be friends. Shake on it. So that's the three of them. And that becomes very important towards the end of the novel. And now I'm going to go more deeply into the three books. So this is a book where every single chapter is important. And there's something important in every single chapter, but I can't go over that or you're going to have to watch like 2 hours, probably more. And I don't want to talk that long because I'm hungry too. So I'm just going to briefly mention the chapter titles because those are very important too. So chapter 1, the period, and then the mail, the night shadows, the preparation, the wine shop, and the shoemaker. And that is the book the first. So in chapter 1, there's nothing really super important. It's just the introduction to every single book. However, there is one quote which I'm pretty sure all of you, maybe most of you have heard by now if you're at least in middle school. I'll read to you. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness. It was the epoch of belief, it was the epoch of incredulity. It was the season of light, it was the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope, it was the winter of despair. So what am I doing right now? I'm naming opposites, right? And that's what really confuses me in Dickens' writing. And this is, quote, renowned everywhere. It is referenced in other novels. And the reason why he does this, at first I thought it was because it was like two cities, maybe like one's like dark, one's light. And this is just referring to like the French Revolution, how it was like, it was good, it was bad. Like, you can't decide if it was good or bad. Like, some people are just like, war, bad, psh, off. But however, there were a lot of like benefits that people got, and it's just so hard to decide. It's such a controversial topic that, you know, it's just hard to decide. And Dickens is just, his mind is probably 10,000 times more brilliant than mine, and there's just some things that he writes that you just can't understand. Maybe John Green can. But anyways, so that's a very important quote in chapter 1. So chapter 2, where do I start? So Mr. Lorry and Dr. Manette and Lucy and Darnay and Carton and all 5 of those people are important in book the first. And Mr. Lorry comes out in book the first, but I don't think he's even mentioned in book the second or book the third. Maybe like briefly for like 1 sentence, but he's not that important after book the first. So all in all, I don't want to explain everything, so I'll just give a brief summary of the whole entire like book. So okay, so Dr. Manette and Lucy Manette, well, obviously they have the same last name. So Dr. Manette, he is the father, and Lucy Manette, she's the daughter. And once they are united by Mr. Lorry, Dr. Manette first sees Lucy as like his wife because she looks so much like her mother. Like, honestly, I don't look anything like my mom. Do you? I don't know. Maybe some of you do. But then that's how much he thought that she looked like his mom. So they were reunited, and this is very important because before that, Dr. Manette was kind of this like lonely, depressed, emo dude who just did a lot of shoemaking. And he has like a shoemaking machine, and that's referenced to a lot towards the end of the novel. There's a lot of things towards the end of the novel, just saying, just warning. And so that is very important. And then Sydney Carton and Charles Darnay They'll come up later, but they're not important right now. Right now, only the Manettes are important. The fact that Dr. Manette and Lucy Manette were reunited is the important fact. And chapter 2 is very important too, so make sure you read that thoroughly because I had to read that a couple of times to understand. Moving on, book the second. Book the second is very, very complicated. So the golden thread. There are a lot of things that happen. So the main events are, of course, between the three of them, Lucy, Carton, and Darnay. So all in all, what happens is that the three of them, their relationship, how Carton likes Lucy, Lucy likes Darnay, Darnay likes Lucy. So what will happen? I'm sorry to spoil this, but what will happen in the end is that Lucy and Darnay will marry. But Carton doesn't want that. Obviously, he loves Lucy too. So he tries to prevent that. However, towards the end, he realizes that that's just his guilt. And I know this is really cheesy and stuff, but they say that if you love someone, you gotta let them go. So he let her go at the very end, and he says, Darnay, let's become friends. Shake on it. And that will become very important because this changes your whole entire view of Carton. Oh, actually, at school, we had this packet, and he's like, find 3 quotes for everything, and it was all about Sydney Carton. It was like, what Sydney Carton thinks of the world, what Sydney Carton thinks of others, how he is sympathetic, how he's mean, how he's nice to others, I spent so much time doing that, and he didn't even check it. Anyways. So I think that really helped me understand Carton a little bit more because there's always that one character who's just oh, I don't like that. They're so mean. They ruin everything. You would think Carton is that kind of character until you get to the very end where he does something that will kind of remain in Charles Darnay and Lucy's guilt forever, embedded into their hearts. And one very important thing that you can't forget in book the second is the Marquis. So I didn't go over this thoroughly when I mentioned the French Revolution, but there are 3 estates. Third estate, second estate, first estate. The first estate is the 0.0001% of the people who lie on gold, okay? So they are the king. And it's basically the king, the king's wife, and just the king's family, just the monarchy. And not even the aristocracy. The aristocracy, the knights, the nobles, are all in the second estate, which are 4%, and then the remaining 95% are third estate, and those include farmers, peasants, a lot of peasants, and I think peasants are 90% of the 95%, and then the other remaining are the bourgeoisie. So sorry, that's French. I spent so long practicing it, so it's bourgeoisie, and then so the thing that's weird is that just the bourgeoisie are in the third estate, but the petite bourgeoisie are in the second estate. What's the difference? So the petite bourgeoisie are businessmen who earn their own money and live off of family business kind of, and the bourgeoisie are they're richer than the peasants, they're richer than the servants, but they're not rich enough to be part of the businessman class. So they work for someone else, or they were born with money, but then somehow they lost it, but they still have that respect. So the second estate is known as the class with money but no power. So they have all they've got. Back then, nobles, knights, they earned way much more money. They earned so much money because they got the land directly from the monarch, the king. But then they don't have any power. So what are they going to do with that? So what eventually happens is that they kind of split up. So the petite bourgeoisie kind of mix in with the bourgeoisie, become part of the third estate, and then all of them revolt against the aristocracy. Why? Well, why wouldn't you? So the aristocracy is the peasants, the third estate, don't have anything to live off of. They don't have money, they don't have food, they don't have a house, they don't have anywhere to go. But on top of that, the aristocracy keeps pushing them. They raise the prices of bread, and then they just inflate everything so that they make it easier for the second estate to buy and make it a lot harder for the third estate to buy. So eventually, the third estate was okay, we can't do this anymore. We can't just live off of worms. We have to do something about it. But the thing is that they don't have anything. They don't have power. They don't have money. They don't have, I don't know, food. They don't have strength to even like go and fight. They don't have weapons. They don't have artillery. They don't have anything. While the first estate, the second estate have everything. But what is it that the third estate have? Numbers. So because of the fact that they're 95% of the population, they can revolt against them. Who cares if they got guns? Who cares if they got knives? You can't win like 10 million people with no arms against like 100,000 people with machine guns. Like, yes, you can shoot them down, but eventually they'll kind of run over you. So that's exactly how they abolished the monarchy, with numbers. And that is mentioned quite frequently throughout the novel, and that's what I mean by foreshadowing. So there's a lot of foreshadowing and symbolism, and one of the greatest symbolisms used in this novel is in book the first, where the aristocracy, they spill the wine. The wine caskets all exploded in the streets, and then all the third estate people, they don't even get food, they don't even get water, but to enjoy a luxury like wine. So they found it, and they finally, they just like herds of like cattle, they went and drank the wine off the muddy streets, and that's one of the reasons why they get the diseases. So and then they were like, I don't know, they were like chewing the wood of the wine caskets to get even like the last like ounce of blood. I mean of blood. Wine. I got to the foreshadowing a little too early. But then while in the middle of all that chaos, there was this one man, his name is Gaspard, who was writing the word blood on the wall with his finger with the wine. And you know how wine is this like rich, dark, red, purple color, which is exactly the color of your blood when you cut your flesh. I mean, not that I would know, but yeah. So that is foreshadowing, and that's not just there to just like portray this like crazy man who's just writing blood on the wall with wine, not drinking it. He comes out later, and he's very important. So he is also important in book the second, and he gets kind of tied in with the Marquis. So now that I've explained everything about the French Revolution, which is probably not even half of it, I can finally tell you. The Marquis is part of the first estate. So he is, no one can like stand up to him, no one can say anything or off with their heads, or they just get run over by his carriage. So they don't have any, the third estate don't have any modes of transportation, including Gaspard. And Gaspard has a family, he has a son, and he becomes very important. So Marquis comes to the third estate town, and he's like, oh, la, 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 I'm rich and all that. And then what happens is that he accidentally runs over Gaspard's kid. So, and then he dies. Now, what does the Marquis do? He doesn't like, honestly, I'm pretty sure Gaspard wouldn't have like forgiven him, but he would have at least thought he was less of a beast if he at least said sorry. But what he did was like, he's like, oh, sorry. He threw him a couple of gold coins. He said, oh, I don't know, use this as your compensation. Now, no matter how much you need money, you can't trade a family member with money, okay? You can't buy someone. I mean, yeah, this is going to all the human traffickers in this world. You can't buy people. I'm sorry. If you can make people, yeah, they're making clones right now, but I mean, that's made with human stem cells too. You can't just buy people and expect them to forgive you. So because of that, Gaspard got so infuriated, and honestly, who wouldn't? So Gaspard, he goes a little bit beyond his limits, and he murders the Marquis. And this theme of revenge comes back. So every act of revenge that is acted upon, it's reflected, it's backfired on them. So what happens is that all of this happens in, this happens in the second, but then the actual court case happens in book the third, which I'll explain. But then, so what happens is the Marquis is dead, and of course they have to find out who it is. He's the Marquis Evrémonde. So once they like do a little like backtracking, they find out that Gaspard is the one who murdered him. So eventually something bad will happen to Gaspard. So yeah, that thing. And then there are a lot of other events in book the second, which are important, but they're not like, I don't want to go over every single little detail, so I'll move on to book the third. So book the third, it's a court case. So this kind of reminds me of To Kill a Mockingbird, because now how it's like, oh, this part, court case, court case, court case, all this leading events, and then suddenly court case. So it's kind of like that. So this was for like everything. So since the third estate is acting upon the aristocracy, they need to find out like why, like how to stop this. Like they can't just find out, oh, you did it, kill that person. That's not gonna like prevent like the 95% of the population from stopping. So there's a court case, but then because of that court case, there's a lot of important things that are found out, such as Darnay is a family member of the Marquis. So why is it important that Darnay is a part of the Marquis's family? Well, the Marquis family is being targeted as a whole, the Evremond family, because they are the ones who make the Third Estate suffer. So everyone's trying to aim at them, while they think that Darnay is like a pure character compared to the Marquis, because he didn't do anything wrong. He treated everyone fair and square, so he shouldn't get the punishment. But the thing is that no one cares about that. As long as he's part of their family, he's still a part of them, and he's still part of their aristocracy. So everyone thinks that he should be sent to the guillotine. Now, the problem is that Charles Darnay and Lucy, like, they need to make a living. Because what happens is that they married and then they had children. So, they can't do anything about it. Like, what does he do? Be like, oh, sorry, I have to die now after, like, I just made you give birth to, like, a couple, like, kids. No, he can't just leave their family. So, remember how I said that Carton said that he would do anything to protect Lucy? Well, since Carton is Darnay's doppelganger, Carton decides to take his place at the guillotine, and I don't know why. I wouldn't do that, no matter how close friends we were. But Carton did that, and that really changes the whole perspective of like Carton and his view of the world. And there's a section at the very end, the last page or so, which explains all of Carton's thoughts before he dies. And before, like while he's in line to the guillotine, he meets the seamstress, and he talks with her, and I think he's a little relieved before that, and then he kind of dies in peace after thinking about what he has done so far, how bad of a person he's been, and that like dying for Lucy and dying for Lucy and Darnay's happiness is like nothing compared to his death at the guillotine, him taking Darnay's place, because he was so guilty of Darnay that he almost made him go to jail, because the Marquis event, and Dr. Manette also accidentally put Darnay in jail too. And there's a lot of like the theme of revenge going around, popping everywhere. And then besides that, another very important thing happens in book the third, towards the end, and that's with Miss Pross and Madame Defarge. Now, I haven't mentioned Miss Pross because she's a character. Yeah, she's a character, but she wasn't a crucial character in book the first, and she was like maybe this much important in book the second. But here, she's important. Very important. So, Madame Defarge, what's her problem? What's like just the Defarge family's problem? Well, they got everything taken away from the Evremonds, which is the Marquis and all the aristocracy and Darnay as well. So, since she can't kill Darnay, she decides to, well, she can, but that won't satisfy her like bitterness towards the Evremond family. So she has to aim for more. Like, well, of course I didn't have that creepy like feeling ever. But then in those like K-dramas, like it's not enough to just kill the person who did wrong to you. You have to hit them where it hurts the most. And that's his wife. That's his family. If she kills Darnay's family, that will hurt him more than just killing Darnay. And that's just how human nature works. It's very complicated, but so Madame Defarge decides to get her revenge by killing Lucy. But the thing is that Miss Pross needs to she has a very strong need and will to protect Lucy because she wanted her brother Solomon Pross. She wanted him to marry Lucy because she thought that he was the only suitable man to marry Lucy. However, that already passed. But that doesn't mean that Miss Pross doesn't care about Lucy anymore. She actually cares more about her now. So she wants Darnay to be really good to her, but she can't be good to her if one of them dies. So she decides to go in and she blocks Madame Defarge's path while she's walking to Lucy. And so what happens is that Miss Pross is completely unarmed. She doesn't have anything. However, Madame Defarge has a gun. So who do you think will win? Well, of course you would think Madame Defarge would win. But Charles Dickens isn't that stupid. He would make it more, I don't know, twistable, juicy, yummy. No. So what happens is I actually found this part really funny. I hate it in those movies where the person has a gun and they're just they give their last word for 10 minutes. I'm just you could have just killed that person by now. And then this always happens. That gun, they always get shot by their own gun. They always get shot by their own bullet. That's what happened to Madame Defarge while she was giving her last words. So Miss Pross is very innocent. She's very innocent and she's very pure and she hasn't done anything wrong. She hasn't done anything out of guilt, out of jealousy, and she doesn't get revenge on anyone, no matter how much she hates them. So of course she would have gotten mad when Darnay married Lucy, but that doesn't mean she doesn't go kill Darnay. No, that's not the case. So she's very, I would say nice compared to all the people who are so bad during the French Revolution. All of that hatred, anger built up leads to more hatred, leads to more vengeance, leads to more blood, and leads to more fights. Which is why it's just this chain. You can't stop it because let's say this man killed my mom, then I would kill that guy, right? You kill that guy. Well, that guy doesn't have. Well, of course he has family. Now his daughter's gonna kill you. Now who else is gonna kill you? Maybe your friend's gonna kill him. And then this is all becoming a chain. There's no end to the greed of human nature, which is a big lesson that I think Dickens is trying to show us. Is that you can't be so greedy. You have to think about others. Carton isn't killing himself for Darnay. He's not killing himself for Lucy. He's just killing himself for the happiness of others. If he lets Darnay die, then what's gonna happen to Lucy's family? Of course they're gonna take revenge. And then all this revenge is just too much for Cotton to handle. So he says that it's the best thing he'll ever do and there's nothing better that he can do, and there's a really good quote which I have to find because I have to read to you. It's a very good quote. But anyways, before I talk about that, I have to talk about Miss Pross and Madame Defarge. So Miss Pross goes and she clashes, right? So what happens is Miss Pross gets her revenge. While Madame Defarge is trying to kill Lucy, she needs to protect Lucy. So her form of revenge is to kill Madame Defarge. So yeah, she's done. Good job, you just shot Madame Defarge. Now, what does she become? She all of a sudden came from this angelic figure to this she became just as bad as Madame Defarge. So that's the thing with killing people and revenge. If you think that person is horrible, wicked, a monster, an animal, and you just go kill that person, that doesn't make you any better than them. It actually makes you worse. Because, of course, that person would have acted, unless they're a maniac then, or a psychopath, then it's not their fault, it's their mentality that's just like that. And even if it wasn't because of that, let's say they were completely normal, they wouldn't have just acted on violence because there's oh, I like stabbing people and shooting people in the head. Something would have triggered that. Either one of them, either someone killed their family member or made their family members suffer. Which is what happened to Madame Defarge. Which is why she became this kind of demon possessed. And then now Miss Pross became like that too. So this whole thing of killing people, it's really not good. Please don't go out and kill people just because like someone like, I don't know, copied your answers. I know sometimes like I want to do that too, but like, you know, let's not do that between people. You know, it's a new generation. This was 1700s, 1800s, you know, it's way back in the past. Past is in the past. Oh, there's still wars now. There's a lot less wars now, which is really good. But there's still a lot of other current issues, ISIS, E. coli, all that other stuff. But no, those are kind of unpreventable, inevitable. So anyways, I think, so the last chapter is called, I got it. It's called The Footsteps Die Out Forever. And the thing I found like weird about this is usually how you would say, when you say forever, like infinity and beyond, it's forever. It's not two words, right? But then this one says for space ever, which I found that it's a little to emphasize it. I know, I don't know, I might just be over exaggerating Dickens' work, but then anyways, I found it. It's actually the last sentence of this novel. It is a far, far better thing that I do than I've ever done. It is a far, far better rest that I go to than I've ever known. So what he means by that is that him taking Carnan, taking Darcy's place at the guillotine is better than any like act of goodness he has ever done. Because this isn't because of cause. He's doing this out of sheer goodness. He's not doing this so that he can get complimented because he's dead already. He's not doing this so that his family will get fortune because he doesn't really have any family members left. He's just doing this for the happiness. And I think that's really what makes up a good person. And I think that's one of the huge lessons that we need to learn, like even as of right now. And it's one of the reasons why this book, being so boring as it is and so hard as it is so popular and renowned, because there's so many hidden meanings that you need to pull out and really just learn from this novel. And the second part, it is a far, far better rest that I go to than I've ever known. So he's saying rather than dying by a guillotine, rather than getting shot by Miss Pross or Madame Defarge, he would rather die for a better cause, which is what makes up a good person. So I hope that you will read this book, and no matter how boring it is, no matter how hard it is, endure through it, because it's a great book and it's really good.